No, no, we went to Florida and we went for a 4 night tour. Can I just check? Has anybody checked with Mohammed? If he's coming? If we have to wait for a minute or two, we can. It's a short meeting anyway.
Call this meeting to order. Roll call, Mr. Donnie,
Here.
Ms. Sandy,
Here.
Ms. McCallie,
Here.
Mr. Mahmood,
Here.
Ms. Brogan. Stand for the flag salute, pledge of allegiance.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, an advance notice has been given to the Star Ledger, the Record, and the Clerk of the Village of Ridgewood. In addition, notices were posted in the office of the Board Secretary and in all schools. I'd like to go over the results of the election. November 5th, 2024. I'd like to make mention that one-year term, the Sheila Brogan got 9,639 votes. I'll just give her a little hand clap for it. 2 3-year terms, Mary Lou Handy got 9,146 votes. Little hand clap for Mary Lou. And Mohammed Mahmoud with 5,324 votes. Little hand clap. So next, we're going to swear in. First, start with Ms. Brogan. Meet me up front. States. I
I got it. My name, but then
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
or affirm that I
or affirm that I
will support the Constitution of the United States
will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith
and I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established
and to the government established
in the United States and this state
in the United States and this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Raise your right hand, please. I state your name.
I, Sheila Brogan,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I possess the qualifications
that I possess the qualifications
prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education
prescribed by law for the office of Board of Education,
and that I am not disqualified
and that I'm not disqualified
as a voter pursuant to RS
as voter pursuant to RS
19:4-1
19
colon
colon
4
14. Oh,
4
dash.
dash 1 dash 1,
I got it.
nor disqualified due to conviction
Nor disqualified due to conviction
of a crime or offense
of a crime or offense
listed in NJS listed in
listed in NJS
18A:12-1,
18A:12-1,
and I will faithfully,
and I will faithfully
impartially,
and impartially
and justly perform
justly perform
all the duties
all the duties
of that office
of that office
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank
Raise your right hand, please. I state your name. I, Muhammad Butler, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States, Constitution of the United States, and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and to the government established, the United States, in this state, under the authority of the people, so help me God. I state your name. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of the Board of Education, that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, that I will faithfully, partially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations. Thank you. Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Mary Louise Handy,
Solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States
the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey,
of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the same,
to the same,
and to the governments
and to the government
established in the United States
established in the United States
and this state,
and this state,
under the authority
under the authority
of the people.
of the people.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I state your name.
I, Mary Louise Handy,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I
that I
possess the qualifications
possess the qualifications
prescribed by law
prescribed by law
for the office of a member
the office of a member
of a Board of Education,
of a Board of Education,
and that I am not disqualified
that I am not disqualified
as a voter pursuant
as a voter pursuant
to RS
to RS
19:4-1,
19:4-1,
nor disqualified
nor disqualified
due to
due to
conviction of a crime
conviction of a crime
or offense
or offense
listed in
listed in
NJS
NJS
18A:12-1,
18A:12-1,
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully
impartially,
and impartially
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties
all of the duties
of that office
of that office
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So now we will take nominations for board president. So I'll open the floor for nominations.
I would like to nominate Sheila Brogan for board president.
So Sheila Brogan's been nominated by Mr. Mahmood. There a second?
It doesn't need a second.
No. All right. Okay. Is there another nomination? Hearing none, I close the nomination for board president. In favor, Mr. Donnie? Ms. Brogan?
Yeah.
Ms. McCallum? Mr. Mahmood?
Yes.
Ms. Brogan? Oh, sorry. Ms. Handy,
Yes.
congratulations,
Thank you.
nominated president.
And Mr. Matthews, just as a procedure question, for this role call, shouldn't that be alphabetical? Because there was no president or vice president yet.
Well, honestly, the names here were
Okay,
in
from
that
the
order.
previous, okay.
Feel my seat.
I'm very grateful for your confidence. Thank you very much. And to the voters who have, again, given me the opportunity to serve this community. Our next piece of business is the nominations for vice president.
I would like to nominate Mohammed Mahmood.
You can take a vote then.
Okay, Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Handy,
Yes.
Ms. McCallum,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Ms. Brogan.
Yes.
Mr.
Congratulations.
Mahmood.
Thank you. Appreciate the nomination, sir, and the vote of confidence from everybody. Thank you.
So we are,
Sheila, I have a request. Since Miss Handy's family is here, can we do a picture for her with the family?
absolutely.
Because they're all,
Absolutely. Sure.
especially the granddaughter is here.
How nice. No, I think just with the family now, maybe, yeah. I thought that at the end of the meeting, we might get a picture of all the new board members for the website.
Wasn't sure if they are going to stay or not,
Mhm.
so.
Oh, you want that out? Right there would be great.
Mm. Well,
Let's not have it fall on our new board member and her family. Maybe that will take her out. Weather good. No workman's comp, no Benny. I don't want to hear about it. This your grand?
we can just start.
My daughter's worried. Can we just hold it up? Maybe we could do it by the. Like that happens.
Thank you. Mom.
She is a sweetheart.
Okay. Alrighty. That was nice. Good thought,
Thank you.
Sarab. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christina. Okay. You could stay for the whole thing. Okay. That was nice. Welcome, Mary Lou. Mhm. Yeah. So we'll go to the reorganization resolutions and adoption of the New Jersey School Board's Code of Ethics. As we normally do, we will read the Code of Ethics out loud, each of us taking a section. And Mary, would you like to start? Thanks.
Ethics for School Board Members, NJSA 18:12-24.1. A, I will uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Board of Education and court orders pertaining to schools. Desired changes shall be brought only through legal and ethical procedures.
I will make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and will seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet the individual needs of all children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing.
I will confine my board action to policymaking, planning, and appraisal, and I will help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them.
I will carry out my responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are well run.
I will recognize that authority rests with the Board of Education and will make no personal promises nor take any private action that may compromise the board.
I will refuse to surrender my independent judgment to special interest or partisan political groups or to use the schools for personal gain or for the gain of friends.
I will hold confidential all matters pertaining to the schools which, if disclosed, would needlessly injure individuals or the school. In all other matters, I will provide accurate information and, in concert with my fellow board members, interpret to the staff the aspirations of the community for its school.
I will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after consideration of the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer.
I will support and protect school personnel in proper performance of their duties.
I will refer all complaints to the Chief Administrative Officer and will act on the complaints at public meetings only after failure of an administrative solution.
Great, thank you. We all need to sign this and give it to Mr. Matthews. Thank you. Okay, and now approval of the Open Public Meetings Act and board meeting dates. And are the dates as listed, as far as you know right now, conflict free? And does that meet with your expectations?
From my perspective, I just want to understand how, with these dates, what is the timeline for budget? When will the public get to see the budget? When will we do the budget presentation before the, I think the preliminary budget adoption is March 24th. So when are we doing budget presentations? What are the dates for those budget presentations? And do we expect any other presentations at that time? I would not like to make that meeting a 11, 12 o'clock meeting where we are making other school-related presentations or other non-budget specific presentations in that meeting. So if we can accommodate that, like budget meeting should be probably dedicated to budget. And public should have information in advance and time to provide their comments. So what is that timeline from this perspective? That's what I wanted.
This is your recommendation for the dates, so if you'd like to, we did
Yeah, I'd be-
discuss a little bit.
Yeah, I'd be happy to speak to that. So, so my recommendation, and again, happy to accommodate any requests or concerns from the board. But my recommendation is that we have at least one primary meeting a month. That works very well with our administrative processes because then we have the opportunity to have a robust committee structure, which we've been working toward for the past year or so. So that's the intention of the one regular meeting a month, but there are some months where we have more business than usual. The budget season is a little tricky because we don't get our budget figures until late February. And then we have our process to prepare for the final budget presentation and adoption. I think last year, if I remember correctly, what we did was we posted, and please refresh my memory, but I believe what we did was we had the meeting with, we had the budget presentation at the preliminary budget meeting, but we worked very hard on our side of things to get the budget finalized for that meeting. So although we have the preliminary budget and we have the final budget, there really, if I remember correctly, there really wasn't even much change in the presentation. We did all the work that we could to have it completed at that time. But I also remember correctly, I believe that we, at the wishes of the board, posted the budget presentation for the public in advance. Am I remembering that correctly? Does that sound right?
We did it with the agenda.
So before we switched to the November election, we used to have budget presentation at GW and BF. And we used to have budget presentations at every school's HSA meetings. So that posting online is in lieu of that, right? So the school community, which is very active with the school's website, they may get notifications, but budget impacts everybody in town.
Correct.
So we need somehow some information that, like when we have two meetings, where one meeting, the presentation is done, and then at the next meeting we are voting, then that gives them an opportunity to provide us feedback. And it gives us board members time to think about that feedback and the administration to maybe review that, right?
Sure. So the challenge with this is just that state's timeframes. So when you have an April election and it's going up for a vote, built in is you have significantly more time. The state's budget figures come out regardless of whether you're an April election or a November election. The state budget's numbers come out at the same time, which I think is projected as February 27th.
The last Tuesday in February.
Yeah, so I believe that's February 27th this year. So if we're a November election and we're working with the allowable 2% increase to the tax levy as our standard model, we have a very tight time frame. So we only have the very tight window of time with which we can have our preliminary budget adoption, and the figure doesn't come out to the 27th. So that's about 4 weeks to make the final changes to the budget, because we we are going to make our budget based on certain assumptions about state aid figures, but we won't know exactly what they are. So we'll create some if-then scenarios, like if we get a reduction, here's what we would do. If we get an increase, here's what we'll do. We'll try to set that up. But once that number comes in, we need to move very quickly to work with the board and to finalize our recommendations to you. Just to your point, there has to be some back and forth. So we'd use our committee structure for that to make sure that we have the right feedback from the right committees around the decisions that we would make. And then we need to get that updated into our budget presentation. And often there may be decisions that it might impact the community. I think that's the point that you're concerned about. So we have to make sure that we also have time to work with any affected parties. So in a worst case scenario, we have a significant reduction. We may have to enact some anticipated austerity measures, which could mean potentially cutting positions. We have to be very mindful to be very give people time to hear that information in the right sequence. So this is really about a time crunch. So having a meeting much prior to this is it's going to take a considerable amount of work to get to a point where we all feel good about the decisions that we've made with the budget. If there is a reduction, even the week before March 24th.
And I know that when we just had briefly talked about this, that period between February 24th and March 24th, besides our committee meetings, that's an opportunity for board members also to have a deeper dive as we did last year if needed on the budget. So those are usually scheduled 2 board members and 2 board members and then 1 board member. If you'd like to participate in that, to give you a deeper dive and a comfort level with the budget. But we did present the budget to the public when we, prior to the meeting, we had that budget information up
We're able to release that
prior to
early.
the preliminary budget. Questions that come up after the preliminary budget, there is the April 7th meeting, which would be the strategic planning report,
Mhm.
but also would leave room for any
Further discussion.
any discussion, and, any
Longer.
further discussion on the budget. So
But we would have already adopted the preliminary budget by then,
well,
right?
your
So,
preliminary budget is your preliminary budget. I mean, it's, you don't usually make big changes, but it doesn't preclude you from making a change from your preliminary budget to your final budget.
yeah,
That is, if you discuss it at the preliminary meeting, that item can be changed at the final budget adoption. If there's no conversation about anything or a particular item is not discussed, once the county approves your budget, that item can't be changed. So you have to have a conversation at the preliminary budget meeting. So you want to do a staffing adjustment, you got to have a conversation at the preliminary meeting. If you don't have those conversations, once it goes to the county and they approve it, basically that's it. Its final adoption is just approved.
right. So it's more of a lip service if you're talking anything after that. So that's why I want community to have some chance to take a look at what we are presenting and provide us some feedback. So when can that happen in this window?
So
When do we have to submit it to the county? By what date do we have to submit it to the county?
That we don't have that calendar yet that has to go to the county. You're saying mid-January stuff's gonna come out regarding software and the dates that it's gotta go to the county. Right now, I checked this morning, they said mid-January, we'll have all that information. But it's not out right now, it's not public.
Can that presentation be done as a superintendent coffee, if not as a board meeting, so that way people get the information of what is being presented? Like somehow, that's how we used to do that, Dr. Fishburne used to go to different schools. and agencies.
Only after the preliminary budget was presented. Then it becomes public information to the board. I don't think you can circumvent having the board discuss the.
no, I mean, I think, Jeff, I'm just going to try to frame the concern because I think we're all speaking the same language
Yeah.
here. And again, I'm not trying to push back on any concern. I'm just having worked within this model now for 10 years of doing budgets. This is just a very frustrating time frame to work in because all boards want to be transparent with their community. I'll tell you, we had this exact conversation with my prior board in my prior district. And we actually did add like a preliminary meeting, and it actually ended up being very underwhelming and even more frustrating because it was too tight of a time crunch for us to be able to make informed decisions when we only had a few weeks anyway. So I think that I thought our compromise last year was actually pretty solid. I don't know what format you want to do it in, but I think releasing information to the public so that they can see like the actual, like what we're actually proposing with the budget, especially, and everyone cares about like what's being added and what's being taken out, right? That's really the big thing that everybody cares about. And then of course, obviously, if there's any significant change to the tax levy, right? But to be clear, to everyone's point here, the tax levy is struck at the preliminary budget meeting. So we're not making changes to the tax levy after that meeting, just to be clear. So I think again, like I said, I think the most important thing is working with the board through committees to be in a place where we have a model with a couple of different possibilities of what's going to happen in terms of the things that are on the table for being added, things that might be on the table for being cut. We get really comfortable with those things. So that way, whenever we get our final state aid number, we can then kind of figure out what we want to do with all the figures that we have in front of us. The sooner we do that, then the sooner we can start getting out the messaging. And I think one of the biggest concerns is, of course, if there are cuts, that's something that's always just very, very hard. Then we can make sure that we're communicating to people why we're doing what we're doing. And we can do that particularly with our most interested stakeholders, board members. You'll know kind of the direction that we're heading in. And of course, we'll have an opportunity to speak to those things. I do want to be transparent. If we are going to, if by that point we know we're going to move forward with something, I'd like to be able to say it. If we're not going to move forward with something, we can say that too. But we do have a variety of channels that we can have those communications through. So I would not want to circumvent the board. So I would have to be working closely with the board to try to figure out a strategy for which we would start to share that information. So but nevertheless, we would have to get the board in a place where you're comfortable with this. Certainly, we don't want you to be walking in kind of trying to make decisions at the time of the preliminary budget hearing. So I think that releasing information to the public in a digestible way that's transparent and clear about what the tax levy is proposed to be, what we might have to be cutting, what we might be able to be adding, getting that information out in that week before gives people time to process over the weekend, and then they can come with their thoughts and opinions to the preliminary budget meeting. And to Mr. Matthews' point, we do have an opportunity to make changes at the preliminary budget meeting. But I would hope that we'd identify what those concerns are well in advance.
So if I summarize, we are saying board members will be meeting in committee structures or one-on-one with Mr. Matthews to understand the budget. And public will get to know by Thursday or Friday before the meeting, and they would have a weekend to digest that information before we vote.
Just like.
Yes, yeah.
Did we release only on Thursday or Friday?
I don't
I-
recall.
Don't think that.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm open to releasing information sooner. I mean,
Right.
what we're not talking about here is that actually my intentions are to have the budget framed and projected thoroughly through February. Like I said, so I want to be having most of these conversations about and having what the board members all comfortable with. What are we putting in? What are we taking out? What are we proposing for a tax levy? But I'd like to have that largely thought through in advance of February. Then we get our numbers. Hopefully we're not shocked by our numbers, unless we're positively shocked. That'd be great, but probably won't be positively shocked. But we'll have a framework for how to move. At that point in time, it's up to the board when you're comfortable starting to release that information to the public. I'd like to have things pretty much set up for you in terms of a presentation, in terms of the actual numbers, in terms of at least the decisions that are made. I mean, Mr. Matthews and team have a lot of work to do in getting the exact numbers crunched down, because the software we have to input the budget into is very fickle. But in terms of knowing what's in, what's out, and what the tax levy is, we can get that figured out, I think, pretty well in advance. But getting to a place where we have the budget presentation where the numbers are all right too, I don't think that it's reasonable to say that we would be able to have that vetted through the board and through our processes much more than a week before March 24th. So if we wanted to have like a meeting right before that, my concern is that if we just can't get done what we need to get done in that amount of time, again, this is my experience, I've tried to do this before, then the presentation lacks specificity, and then people feel like we're not being forthright about where we are. Yeah. So, but again, if you think that like a Wednesday release of a budgetary presentation, I'm pretty confident that we could be in a comfortable place the week before. I feel like we did, because by the time the board reviewed it, well, I think we were done with that presentation by the Wednesday the week before. So, and if everyone, I mean, we
I
can,
have
we'll
to,
work with the
we have
board
to
on that.
see. I don't remember it was released that early, but we can look back and see. I know it was released at least by Friday of that week. So, but again, I think we need to see where you are as of, you know, the end of February when our state aid, but you'll have all the outlines and options
Yeah.
already there by the beginning of March.
That's
So
right.
then it is fine tuning it and putting your presentation together, and making sure all the numbers are right.
I would say if you did want to add another public meeting, like if that was something that we wanted to do to give people more time before the vote, I would ask that we don't try to do that a full week in advance. That's just going to be too much of it. We lose an entire week of being able to work in already 4 weeks. I would really only say I'd only really be, I would not recommend that we do that sooner than the Thursday before.
I think we have an opportunity, though, at the February 24th meeting, to begin to look at some of the structure of the budget, right?
Yeah.
Without assumptions. Right. Russ. That is, in the past, that's what we have done. We have done it on the assumption that state aid is flat. You know, you don't know, and extraordinary aid is flat. And here's the picture that we have.
Yeah,
But it's not the preliminary budget. It's just really the beginnings of a public discussion of the budget.
so actually,
And
at
components
that
of it.
meeting on the 25th, there's gonna be actually a gap review. I mean, you're gonna have more expenses than revenues, so it'll be a negative.
Mhm.
It's not gonna be, obviously not gonna be a balanced budget. We will effort to balance the budget on flat funding. Right, so, again, 25th is the day we get our state aid.
Yes.
We can actually give you a preliminary budget. Based on flat funding. No state aid, 2% tax increase, actually a reduction in extraordinary aid because our trend has been, we haven't been hitting that number. So that number is going to be a reduction. We will look at the budgeted fund balance that we talked about at the last meeting of $2.7 million.
Yeah.
So that number will be in here. So yeah, we can have that for you prior to, whenever.
Right. So that, I mean, that would be at least the start of the discussion on February 24th. Gives us the model we're working with. And then when you get the state aid figure, we
Then we'll start.
fill in all the blanks. Of course, if our state aid is cut, then,
We'll
the
have a-
reality is you will, I'm assuming, will already have sort of a list of
We-
possibilities where you might be able to find money.
We have to plan for that too.
So we could then kind of have that very general discussion, understanding that it would be subject to change based on what would happen on the
So we have to
24th.
plan for
of
flat
February.
and for a reduction in state
Right.
aid.
But
So-
we could at least, it kind of flesh out what the parameters are, is what
Yeah.
you're saying, so that people can start thinking about what they care about and have conversations, right?
So
If
Mr.
that
Matthews,
satisfies
yeah.
some of your
and
concerns.
Mr. Matthews, in your circles of BAs, have you heard anything so far about any possible cuts this year, or
This
we are
is,
just
this
being
is the
prudent?
1 year, Mr. Donnie, that I'm really not plugged in like I'm usually plugged in. I mean,
Okay.
I've been talking all over the state. And this year, I don't have the same data.
Okay,
No one knows. Everyone's in the dark.
thank you.
Confirm the same with my channels to the superintendent groups and the associations that we're a part of. The state has been very clandestine about what they're going to do, but they are saying either, it's going to be somewhere between a flat or a slight decrease. There's been a lot of hubbub and turmoil about the rebalancing of school districts and funding, and a lot of districts have been losing and losing and losing. And some districts have been actually ending up positive like we have. So it's really, I think there's just a lot of sensitivity around how they're going to approach this budget. It's also an election year. So there's just a lot of factors on the table. And I think those are all reasons why they're just keeping this very tight to the vest.
And the legislature is beginning to take comments on the formula. And what changes may be part of the formula. So I did ask Dr. Schwartz and And Mr. Matthews, if in fact we could think about making some comments on this to the state about the funding formula and its impact. And one is this, the big unknown every year. I mean, we need consistency. We need to understand the formula, and it needs to be, again, that transparent as you can be. Special education issues are, the census model is a problem for some districts, but throughout the state, the census model in terms of how they fund special education is problematic. Rather than doing as they used to do in tiers. So you have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 special education costs. And then you're really funded about you with your costs in consideration. Transportation and the way the formula was developed in put into place in 2008. You know, there've been some changes, and how we look at security now isn't just buzzing in systems. There's more to security. There's mental health issues that are now part of security. So all of those kinds of changes need to be brought forward to our legislators to take a look at how is this formula really going to be structured going forward. And the state is supposed to every 3 years evaluate the weighting system of your elementary, you know, how much it costs to educate an elementary student, a middle school student, a high school student, and then weight those costs for students that needed, English as a second language, special education. So there are some things I think it deserves some comment from districts like us that have benefited from the restructuring. But as we go forward, when that restructuring ends, how do we continue to not be guessing every year about what our funding is? It should be a clearer picture. So anyway, that's the hope on that one. Are there any other area dates that you do you see any conflicts at this point? I know it's hard to no.
It's a minor holiday, but the first night of Hanukkah is December 15th and we have a meeting. I don't know if it's not a major holiday, but it is a family holiday.
It is the first night of Hanukkah? Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out.
So the 8th of December would be the Monday before that, right? 8, 7, 15, yay, still got it. Yeah. So let's look at moving that to the 8th.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll change my recommendation. Let's move that to December 8th, please.
Thanks.
So Mr. Matthews, if you can just memorialize that. Thank you so much.
So this last year when we made a change, we just looked at it again and brought it to the second meeting and finalized it then. Yeah. So we'll let that change happen, percolate on these dates, make sure that you have no major conflict of anything. I know last year we had a conflict and we did move a meeting to Thursday, which is not the norm for us, but we did that because I think we're going to have 2 members out. So just take a look at that. And we'll bring this back on for the 27th of in our next meeting. Okay.
Okay,
I
so
don't think
a
we-
resolution calls for filing these dates within 7 days of the adoption.
I know, but why did were able to not do it last year?
I think we just,
Or did we?
I think we just
ignore
did it and I think we ignored it. Yeah. So we can strike that portion from the resolution for the time being. And make these tentative dates. We can put them on our website and then just change them before we advertise them.
But we can't have a meeting on 27th without advertising it. And why would we spend?
You're right. Yeah,
money
exactly
twice?
right.
If,
Yeah.
let's advertise this, and if there's a change, we can always. Because we have to advertise 27th meeting anyway, and
Yeah,
it wouldn't
right.
make sense to spend money
How did we
twice.
do it last year?
I don't know.
I pretty distinctly remember that that it was not proper last year.
Oh.
So I think if we can finalize it now, we should at least tentatively finalize it now.
Right.
And then if we have to make a change later, we can always make a change later,
Okay.
but I'd rather get the advertisement done.
Okay.
So if no one has any, so I'm gonna just, I'm changing the recommendation. If you can all make a change on your record, and I'll read the change in the record here. I'll read in the record now. That resolution, recommended resolution administration. So it's A2, approval of the Open Public Meetings Act and board meeting dates. The date listed for our December regular meeting on the original agenda read December 15th, 2025. I hereby change that recommendation, ask Mr. Matthews that you make a change into the record that I'm recommending not December 15th, but December 8th. And all of the dates, I believe, are good with the board members. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, they appear to be.
Okay. And if we identify a future conflict later, we can always just adjust. But let's get this advertised.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Your motion,
I make a motion.
As
motion by
amended.
Ms. Brogan, is there a second? Second, Mr. McCalley. Roll call, Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Haney,
Yes.
Ms. McCalley,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood. Yes. Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
motion passed.
And then adoption of Robert Rule of Order, adoption of board policy, regulations and bylaws, and designation of official newspapers. You did see that the legislature had approved that we can, if the Star Ledger actually goes all digital.
Yep.
That we are able to do that. I think it's through the end of March at this point. And then I guess they'll revisit it depending upon that. So I move, what's that, A, B? That's B, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay, motion for 3, 4, and 5. Ms. Brogan, is there a second? Ms. McCalley. Roll call, Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Sandy,
Yes.
Ms. McCalley,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood. Yes. Ms. Brogan,
Yes.
I move annual appointments.
May I make a note on this one?
Yes, sure, please.
Just a real quick adjustment. First of all, thank you, Miss Handy, for your watchful eye earlier. I did catch an error that got by us. Under item 4, it says Title 4 coordinator. That should be Title 9 coordinator. So that's IX, not IV.
Oh.
All right.
Okay.
So again, that is the appointment of the Title 9 coordinator. So again, if we can make an adjustment to the recommendation, Mr. Matthews, I'll read the change into the record. Under resolutions under section B, annual appointments. Item number 4, it says appointments, Title 4 coordinator. That should say Title 9 coordinator, or in Roman numerals, IX coordinator. That should also be changed within the body of the resolution. It should read: the Ridgewood Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, approves Jamie Cangelosi Murphy, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education and Personnel, as the Title 9 IX coordinator for the 2025 school year.
okay, is there a
So-
motion?
On just to be clear, on 2 and 3, where we identify that the director of special programs will be the coordinators. At this point, since we don't have a director of special programs, it would fall to Dr. Fenwick.
Correct.
So are we ready to,
Yep, I move B.
be, okay, second,
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Motion by Mr. Mahmood, second by Ms. Sandy. Roll call, Mr. Donnie,
Before I vote, I just want to put just my comment on the record. We started adding this since last year, I think. I'm going to vote for it, but very comfortable. Like I'm going to vote for it because I trust Mr. Matthews.
Mhm.
But this whole moving the meetings to once a month and doing the checks and all the bill payments in the middle. Why do we need board meetings? That's why on that, but I'll vote for them. It's just defeats the whole purpose of the board meetings and board.
Sorry, which part?
The bill, the ability to pay the bills between the board meetings. Yeah, we are voting on that authorizations.
The B first, so on B.
Yeah, we're doing appointments.
Oh, okay. I just heard that annual, so it was annual authorizations, not annual.
So you're yes.
Yeah, anyway, I'm yes. on
Listen.
board. Yeah.
Which one are you concerned about?
The payment.
B what?
No, it's C.
No, he's talking about.
Oh, C, we're
I'm
not
on
there yet.
C. Yeah, I realize it now.
Miss Handy,
Yes.
Miss McCallie. Mr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Mr. Brogan.
Yes. Now it's C, it's annual authorization.
Yes, so
Yeah.
I'm requesting those comments to be moved from that. Whatever I said was for C, not for B.
You're saying this is new here, we used to not be here at the C1.
No, we started it last year when we
Yeah.
moved these once a month meetings. Because that when we are meeting only once a month, there are maybe like net 30 payments, invoices. So it's basically where it says the best interest of the board to pay promptly, it covers everything. So. And once you pay it, then you're ratifying it, you're not. It's a formality vote after that, once the payment is already made.
So, so are you, do you need a response? Do you want me to give you a response then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I understand the apparent connection between the timing that this came out last time and the meeting once a month. But we haven't really had, first of all, we've been kind of operating with like one primary meeting a month. We've had plenty of months where there was only one meeting, but there's plenty of meetings where we do have two, where we have an enormous amount of business as was recommended in this here. But the problem is that we actually are subject to a prompt payment law in New Jersey. And when we owe vendors money, we need to pay them. So it's actually very common in school districts that they would authorize the business administrator to approve payments between meetings. That does not mean that the vote, it doesn't matter at that point, because the board can take action in the following meeting. They do not have to authorize that payment, in which case we would have to take further action from there. It's different if it's actually paid, right? The money's actually put out. But we're very meticulous and mindful, as any mindful administration would be, that we're not going to be making payments on things that are not within our direct purview. Anything that is going to be a significant payment that the board would take natural interest in is going to come before the board, or it's going to be subject to a bid, or it's going to be subject to competitive contracting. So the bid threshold prevents us from doing anything be below the 44,000, right?
Right.
So those items will come to you, but those other items we keep the district running smoothly. I mean, we to be clear, before this resolution came on, the district was already making payment on things that were below the bid threshold. This just is a formal authorization of that. If the board wanted to move to a model, which would be a change for how we operate, that no bill is paid until a board resolution is approved, then we would have a significant, we become significantly, we'd have to significantly change our processes, because the bills are not, the bills here have never been paid only after the board approves the bills list. Mr. Matthews, is there anything else you want to share about that?
No, that is correct. I mean, anything over like say 44,000 for the most part would definitely have at the board meeting. There's a lot of miscellaneous bills that need to be paid like in the interim. Like, you know, we have a plumber came in over the weekend and did work at GW. That bill will come and we'll have to push it out. Guy came to GW on the 23rd, found material for 8 hours. He did 1 hour. That bill's going to come to us. It's going to be like less than $300. We're just going to push it out the door.
Right, so if we are talking about those type of bills, then there can be a limit, or that can be mentioned here. That if you're talking about somebody coming in for an emergency work, but this basically covers everything. So that's why I'm saying that I'm going to vote yes because of how you operate and my trust.
Mhm.
But as a procedure, I don't understand the need for a board vote on if the procedure. if our working requires us to make those payments, then we should not have a process for board to vote on those, right? So if people are coming in and we are required to make those payments, then maybe we don't need that board vote because we had to make a payment, we made a payment, it's part of the business,
Sure.
right? So that's where my conflict is, that when we say the superintendent and board difference, if it's administrative, it's operational, it's not part. Why would it- If those are part of the operational work, so that it looks like a formality vote to me.
Yeah,
at that
I,
point.
and I think it is, and again, I think we can do a little more homework to answer that a little bit more articulately, but the way that I've always seen the process is that the board doesn't want to become a bottleneck per se. Like, I mean, if you're pouring over every single purchase, every single bill that's paid before it's paid, as though you're the approver of the bill, then in effect, you're kind of putting yourself in a position to have to run the district. And the reality is that me and my team are the ones who need to review all of those items. And you're in a position where the bills list, and for the public who's listening, the bills list is reviewed by the board on a monthly basis and it is approved by the board. That doesn't mean that the board is responsible for knowing every single purchase and checking and vetting every single purchase, but it's an exercise in oversight and management and vetting. And then to an extent that there's questions, we want to always make sure that there are answers and that you have an appropriate amount of resources ready to explain. So obviously, if there's any illegal purchasing or anything that's wrong, that's a whole other problem. But you're not really put in a position as board members to actually be able to vet those, to be able to vet every single one of those purchases. In the same way that I can't vet every single thing that happens in the district before it happens as well. So we'll get you a more sophisticated answer for sure. But the spirit of it is to make sure that we can operate the district smoothly between meetings. And honestly, even if we had 2 meetings a month, I'd still be more comfortable having the resolution. Mr. Matheson, I'm sorry.
I
you
was
wanted
going to add kind of the same thing. The board still has to authorize payment of all bills through the formal budgeting and resolution process. So I know some of it's after the fact, but we still need to have that authorization by the board that you do approve the bills. You have seen them and reviewed them, and we do have your authorization formally through the resolution.
Right, so maybe that resolution should say that board has reviewed the bill or something. It's not like authorizing the payment. So we may just have to look at the language of the resolution.
Yeah, sure. Let me take a note of that.
Also, even same question on number 2. I mean, is it a blanket transfer authority as well? Because I thought the amounts come back to us for approval. So is there a threshold amount for that as well?
So there's a report that's given out every month called the A-149 regarding a transfer report that's reviewed. And there's a from and a to amount that the threshold can exceed over 10% of the total line for the period. So money is moved around because, things are, for whatever reason, some lines may not be adequate or over budget or under budget. So within a certain fund and a certain function, money does get moved around, but the threshold by the state is 10% from and to a particular line.
And that one is looked at by county also, like if they're moving more than a certain amount, then they have to get county business
Yeah.
administrators approval. That's more regulated and
Yeah,
only certain.
that's reviewed by the county every month.
That has always been there.
Yes.
For me, reviewing the bills is really reviewing the bills to make sure that what we've discussed and decided at a board meeting actually is happening. So we discuss curriculum. Are we in the summer, are we doing the textbooks that we decided upon? And the agreements that we've made with special education placements. So that's all on the bills. So to me, that's a sense of what we say we're doing, we are actually doing when we look at the bills.
Right, so if that's the spirit, then resolution should reflect that resolution.
Okay. Move annual authorization.
Motion made by Ms. Brogan. Is a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mahmood. Roll call, Mr. Donnie?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Handy? Yes. Ms. McCallie?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Mahmood?
Yes.
Ms. Brogan?
Yes.
Okay, number C, authorizations pass.
Comments from the public, if there are any. There's no one back there? We do have me see, we do have a hand raised. Amy? You're on with the board.
Hi, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. If you could just give your full name and your municipality of residence.
Absolutely. So, my name is Amy McCambridge. I live on 232 Stylen Avenue. I grew up in Ridgewood. I am a professional soccer trainer in Ridgewood. I have two sons. Also that are athletes in Ridgewood, and I'm also a former Marine. I come to you with a very unique perspective, having studied chemical and biological exposures on our men and women who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. My background gives me a deep understanding of the long-term consequences of toxic chemical exposures, and it's why I come to you guys tonight is I'm deeply concerned about the two turf fields that the Board of Education has under their, not through the council, but through them. And that would be Ridgewood High School's main field and Stevens Field. These fields are contaminated, and I know everyone's been talking about the PFAS, but these specific two fields are contaminating the soil, water, and surrounding areas with these forever chemicals linked to cancer. And I know you guys have heard all of this. But it persists in the environment, accumulates in the human body, and every flood from these fields, which from when I played, we didn't have turf fields, but since I've been back and a trainer for 17 years, these fields have flooded multiple times a year. Every single time it floods, these fields introduce more toxins into our waterways, putting the health and safety of your students, their families, and this community in danger. And my big question is, despite all of this, no testing has been done. To my shock, like I had no idea. I thought you guys were testing all of this after the floods to assess the extent of the contamination. To me, this is like borderline criminal. Studies from Mount Sinai and Columbia University clearly link PFAS exposure to serious health risks. These are not abstract findings. They are well-documented, peer-reviewed data showing real harm. And as the Board of Education, how do you allow this to continue? And this raises a critical question. Is the water in our schools even drinkable, or is it also laced with PFAS as well? What are you doing to ensure that the students have safe, clean drinking water every single day? These are basic questions that really demand answers. The community, especially the students, have a right to know what they are being exposed to. As the Board of Education, you're entrusted with their safety and well-being. Ignoring these risks is a betrayal of that trust. These children deserve better. They deserve to know the spaces that they play on and the water that they drink are safe and not filled with chemicals that will harm them for years to come. What I hope you would do immediately is demand a comprehensive testing of the soil, water, and surrounding areas, starting right now and then after every single flood. Transparency is essential. And it's not if there's contamination, it's how much now, like how much damage has been done over the years with no oversight, which is crazy. It's crazy to me that this hasn't been done. Again, as someone who's seen the devastating effects of chemical exposures, I know the consequences will not appear overnight, but they will quietly devastate lives years from now. With the studies and knowledge that we have, inaction is simply unacceptable. These students and their families are counting on you, on us as coaches and trainers to act responsibly, transparently, and urgently. And that's really what I came here to say, is that these students don't consent to, you know, doing their wellness classes on these PFAS-laden fields, which, and then not including the student athletes who then go on to play on these turf fields. These kids don't even have a choice. They have no idea what's going on, and we do. So we have this moral responsibility to the families and these kids. And I'm just wondering why, through all these years, nothing has been done to really truly address this, or at least test the soil and the water. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina, Million, you're on with the board.
Hi, Christina Million, Ridgewood resident. I'd like to revisit the notes from the last BOE meeting on December 16th, where a former board member mentioned the Village of Ridgewood's request for $160,000 from the BOE to fund a softball nightlights for a non-BOE field. And I understand this year is Ridgewood's CUSAC monitoring year, the Quality Single Accountability Continuum, which is my understanding it monitors school district performance in areas like fiscal responsibility and governance. And I was hoping that you could just clarify whether allocating funds to a non-BOE asset, such as nightlights, might have implications for this evaluation, and would such an allocation raise concerns with the state? I'm all for funding female sports as a woman who benefited from it myself, and extracurricular activities are very important. But I will say that if there's a surplus of money to consider nightlights for a non-BOE asset, I'd like to kindly remind you of some issues within our schools that need immediate attention and investment. For one, security. I know that taking a holistic look at security and protocols were mentioned at past coffee talks and BOE meetings, and it would be great to get an update on that. Who's leading that security review work stream? What progress has been made? What areas can we strengthen security and investment now, and what needs further discussion? One thing that comes top of mind to me is the opportunity to hire retired plainclothes police officers for elementary school security in particular. I think that would be a very worthwhile investment, and those salaries I know rest within the BOE budget. I think someone just mentioned PFAS, PFAS filters at schools. We still lack PFAS filters in all water fountains across our schools, but high levels of PFAS are particularly harmful for kids. And, that's cited in the quarterly reports we get mailed to us from Ridgewood Water. There's a rodent issue happening at Hawes. Hawes parents were only made aware of the rodent issue at the school after students reported mouse droppings in their classroom before the holidays. But reports as recently as of today says it's still an issue in the classrooms. So we have received no district comms about this sanitation issue or how long our kids have been exposed to it. And we have no comms on remediation plans and the timeline. So I'm asking tonight that the district physician be engaged to review the health risks of mouse droppings, especially for kids with developing immune systems. This is a serious matter that I feel demands attention, and parents deserve clear guidance and reassurance about the safety of our kids in our classrooms. And the fourth point I'd like to make is about special needs. While I'm not a special needs parent, I find it deeply concerning to hear from parents at nearly every meeting who come to that podium or dial in with heartfelt concerns, often in tears. Their issues deserve immediate attention, funding, and prioritization. And these issues directly affect the health, safety, and well-being of all of our students and should take priority. So if there is $160,000 available in the BOE budget for a non-BOE asset, I urge you all to prioritize investing that money directly into our students and our schools. And I would really like it if you address my questions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Suzanne, you're on with the phone. You're on with the board.
Yes, hi, Susan Ruan. I'm a Ridgewood resident. I want to begin by congratulating the board members that were reelected, as well as congratulating my next door neighbor, Miss Handy, for her new position on the board. I would like to begin with the bylaws. I believe that's what they were called, or the code of ethics that the board read, and it was regarding treating all children equal, regardless of race, income, and special needs. And I know a lot of parents have complained about the special needs education, and it is one of those things that I have a son who's special needs, and I always thought of it to do the best I can for him. And I know it's only appropriate education that the board is supposed to give with the Ridgewood Public Schools. However, the word appropriate is such a strong word, and I sometimes don't feel like the Ridgewood Public Schools are appropriately giving education to the students. As for, I want to piggyback a little bit on Christine's comments about the $160,000 for lights that the village council is asking Ridgewood Public Schools to give. Again, $160,000 goes a long way for helping special needs children. And after the last meeting where parent got up and explained the shortfalls for their children, I can't understand how the public school can give that much money for lights and have still have to improve on their special needs. And this is lastly, it is for my son who attends the STEPS program. He had asked, I thank the superintendent for taking initiatives for the bus stop. My son had pointed out that the intersection of Franklin and Oak is a little bit unsafe. And that I think is something that needs to be addressed with the village as well. But the light only allows one light gives 30 minutes for cars, and then the that's on Franklin, and the light for Oak only gives 30 seconds for Franklin and 15 seconds for Oak. And 15 seconds is really a short period of time for people to cross and for cars to try to make turns. And some people are not patient and will pull out as people are in the crosswalk. So again, that's something that needs to be discussed, and I think it's bigger than the Board of Education. It does need to go to the village, but I just wanted to bring it up, especially since my son always talks about it when I drop him off. Thank you again. Bye.
See any more comments? Dr. Schwartz, do you have any you wanna?
Sure. I'm not sure that I can answer everyone's concerns or questions right here and right now, but I certainly want to give some acknowledgement. First of all, Amy, I'm sorry, I think I missed your last name, but I appreciate you commenting with us. And first of all, thank you first and foremost for your service to our country. Appreciate your comments and your questions and your concerns. We have had a variety of conversations internally about a lot of those concerns. Again, I'm not really set up right now to give you a detailed response, but with something that we're very concerned about those fields flooding, and we certainly appreciate you coming and sharing those concerns with us. Ms. Millian shared a variety of concerns. I think both speakers mentioned the request from the village for the board to assist with a lighting project. We do not have any recommendations or positions on that at this time. We appreciate the certainly levels of concerns. We appreciate the awareness about PFAS filtered fountains in the schools. We have added them, and we're looking to possibly expand them if needed. We know that Ridgewood Water provides our water and is making an effort to have a holistic solution. We're aware about some rodent issues. It is sort of something we experience this time of year. These are old buildings. And when it gets cold out, the little critters do seek a place that's warm. So we've been very proactive. We have issues here at this old building as well. So it is an unfortunate reality that we live in. To my knowledge, we don't have any kind of circumstance where it is rampant and classrooms are absolutely covered or anything that we might be afraid of. But I would just encourage, if anyone hears anything, just make sure you report it to your school right away. Our facilities department has been very, very swift in getting our animal control here. We did a lot of work over the break, knowing that the buildings were going to be empty. So there's a lot of work done to try to mitigate that as well. And it's not limited just to Haws. That is sort of something that happens this time of year. But again, if anyone has any information that concerns them, please feel free to reach out. I know Ms. Corliss has done a lot of work just connecting with folks who had concerns as well. Ms. Marine, thanks so much for coming out. Thanks for saying hi to everybody. Appreciate your thoughts as well. Again, I think you mentioned the lights as well, the lighting project and those funds. Really appreciate that. As far as your concerns about the Franklin and Oak intersection, it's certainly something we can connect with the village about to take a look to see if that's something we should be concerned about. I know that that's probably very underwhelming, but just trying to pay respect to those response, just kind of off the cuff. That's what I can do right now. So thanks for being with us.
the Franklin and Oak Street pedestrian crossing time to the police attention to just evaluate it and see if there are any issues that they are seeing on a regular basis. Often they will do a study on that. So, all right.
I think if I know the details, I think Suzanne attends the Citizen Safety Committee meeting, so she has probably already brought it to their attention. I think she's asking for our push from our side, not just bring to their attention. It's probably already
She-
brought to their attention.
Not to my knowledge, she hasn't. She
Okay.
does come, but I don't remember that being one of them. Could have been, would have missed it. But certainly that the intention would be for the board to just mention it to our police. Consent items, and we've got two: attendance at conferences, attachment A, and curriculum and instruction for field trips. Might we just take those together?
Happy to move A and B.
You move,
I'll move it. Yeah.
thank you.
Second,
Motion, McCallie, second by McLeod. Okay, roll call, Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Quack, Ms. Handy,
Yeah.
Ms. McCallie,
Yes.
Ms. McMood,
yes.
Ms. Rogan.
Yes. It brings us to comments from the public, but before we do that, I just wanted to remind the board that last year at our January meeting, we did approve some goals, board goals. And if I might just review those with you, and I think that we've made good progress on our goals. And I would suggest that between now and our next meeting, should you have any goals for the board, to get them to me so that we can discuss them. But last year, our goals were to reestablish the annual school board election, starting with November 2024 election, which allowed for the two board members being in a 3-year cycle, 2-1-2. That was completed last year. Work closely with the superintendent to develop the 24-25 school budget that meets the needs of our students in the district and is mindful of the property tax impact. In the budget development process, consideration should be given to piloting a intramural sports program. So my understanding is the discussions on intramural sports were rolled over to our wellness. And we did work, I think, cooperatively on developing our 24-25 budget. Did you want to say?
That's it. Well, that's in the we moved that to district goals, which is on the administration side.
Yeah. And the third one was prioritize investigating and identifying a flood mitigation solution for our sports fields, ensuring collaboration between the district and the village. And as you know, the Army Corps of Engineers is now involved with that. And I don't have an update on that. Do you have any current information of meeting dates or anything at this point?
No, I don't have any immediate, nothing that immediately available, but I do know that, you know, this just to manage expectations, invoking, even getting approval and congressional funding for the Army Corps to do this work, just really puts us on like a 15-year road for a solution. So this is not going to be something that is going to impact us anytime immediately soon.
We have been quite lucky this year with lack of rainstorms for us in terms of the fields this fall, and even into this winter now. Even with some of our rainstorms, we have not had any issues with flooding, but that is to be determined with each storm, I know. But has the flag walls, whatever you're calling those,
Yeah, they're windscreens.
Windscreens
That's
are up.
so we did. I mean, we're making some attempts at putting money towards silt mitigation. Really, we can't adjust the water flow, but we're hopeful that we're still We still have to finalize the logistics of having a cover for the field, which we looked at. Having field covers proved to be quite challenging. So we're still pursuing that, but there's a lot of logistics in physically moving covers onto the field, storing the covers. But the windscreen seems to be a logical potential mitigation strategy in that if the silt is an issue, it's a two-sided screen. And we're hopeful that that will play some role in the same way that like not necessarily that it's going to filter out the silt from the water, but in the same way that like if you ever see a snow fence, the way that can impact the flow and it can cause it can kind of disrupt the flow of the silt. Perhaps it could disrupt it significantly enough. We're also looking at sedge. Is that the sedge plantings? Is that what they're called? Along we're working with our environmental club as well to using some of the inputs from the Columbia students that were here to look at doing some plantings of some natural grasses that might also further displace the silt. So now's not the time to plant, obviously, but those are the types of at least interim strategies we're trying to use.
When can we expect the report from the architects on, in the event that all of our efforts don't, to save the fields, that we have an alternate place so that we don't lose a season?
So, oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I should have mentioned that. So we did get a draft of the initial facilities assessment, and we may have gotten the draft of the field study as well. But we have determined unofficially initially that and this is actually pretty significant, that we will be able to take action to this year make some adjustments to the BF field configuration, so that way, even just as a natural grass field, it could be an overlap or an overflow field. So we're having an analysis of a variety of things that can be done, but at minimum, it seems like we would be able to, with relatively manageable costs, be able to at least have a natural turf field over there that is regulation size. Mr. Matthews?
Yeah, so I did receive a proposal from EI on December 24th, and I met with them and I talked to them today regarding proposal for engineering services to provide a field flood study. So I'm going to move on this proposal because I think that we have to exhaust all remedies to see that we are looking at all possibilities to mitigate the situation over at the high school. So I do have their proposal. I did talk to them about it today, and I will talk to you further about moving this thing forward so we can get that study done.
All right, so Mr. Matthews is bringing up the fact that another firm other than our architects kind of approached us with some strategies that they think might be helpful for our situation. So we'll bring that to the board for discussion.
Okay, you have kind of like multiple,
Yeah, we're going at this from multiple angles. Yeah.
excellent. Okay.
But before we contract with them, we get an idea what ideas they have that our architects may not have thought about.
Yeah, we would bring that to the particularly the facilities committee first. And we did have an initial meeting. So I got a preview of it, but I think it's something for us to discuss as a board before you won't see a recommendation before at least the committee of the board has a chance to look at it.
Great. So as I said, if there are specific goals that you would like the board to work on, get them to me.
I think one of the goals, since we already started this process, the whole special ed internal audit and recommendations, that what needs to be done there, that should be a board goal. I don't know how to word it exactly, but basically we had our parents that came to us that there should be an audit. We said we'll do an internal audit first, or we'll do data collection first, and then we will see what type of audit is needed. So that way we are not spending money in hiring somebody without data analysis. So that data analysis part was done, that presentation was done. Parents provided some input. So what are our next steps? That should be a pretty significant board goal this year. So that what came out of that and what would be our next step as a board.
The strategic plan.
I mean, you can look at it from a couple angles. I think that your question's directed at me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I think you can look at it through a couple angles. I think that, there's a governance function to that presentation. And, over the life of this board, we'll have another presentation because we're going to make it an annual event. So, and there certainly is some follow-up that we would like to do with that. So I think that's fine if the board wants to make that a function of a goal because you've had constituents reach out to you and it's something that we put together. And Dr. Fenwick put a considerable amount of time in so that you could have a stronger sense as to how things are going in that space and what the trends are. So I think it works as a board goal. If that's something you want to do, just again, my opinion. But I think that, but we have administrative actions that are going to flow from that as well. I think we have that memorialized we may have that memorialized in our district goals as well.
But I see that as a board goal also, that at least we need a communication goal on that to circle back with our constituents. We need a goal to just keep asking you questions on what's happening there. So, right, so that's from board perspective.
You got to have some goals, right? So
I don't know. There's a lot happening in the district this year, and that's why I asked whether, in fact, you need board goals. There's a lot happening with their strategic plan, with that involvement. So, overlap. Yeah, but again, a lot of times a board goal really becomes a district goal.
How's this
So-
different from the field goal? Last year we had a goal for fields. How's that different? There was a lot happening in the district last year also, and that's also a lot administrative. The board did not do anything really. It's mostly administrators that did the work there. So how is it different?
Well, that's what I want to be careful of. When it becomes that the board really doesn't do anything, it's really just another job for the district to do. But if in fact our goal is to monitor, progress in special education to meet the needs of all students, that might, and then we would receive.
I think
the
from board
report.
perspective, I think we owe an answer to the residents who came and spoke at board meetings. So we heard them, we told them that, okay, we'll do something. Then we made a presentation, which was not what they were expecting. They came and they spoke passionately about it. And now if we say, okay, we'll make it a once a year presentation and we'll provide them answer at next year's presentation, I don't think we have heard them. So board goal to me is that we owe them an answer.
So I think that just kind of to follow up on what you're saying, what I'm hearing
Right.
is that talking about making it a priority for the board, like when we did the fields. And I would argue frankly that we need to continue that as a priority from the board perspective, because it is a community-wide problem. And I do agree that the special education community has been asking for certain things. And I think we have gone a very long way. And as I said to Dr. Fenwick, I thought she did an excellent job on that presentation. But it was clear that there were other things that we needed to dive into. And so that is administrative, it's not board. But to the extent that we acknowledge as a board that it's a priority for us to, and like you said, monitoring, I think that bridges the gap and hopefully doesn't add too much more work to the administrative side so that you have not only your district goals, but your board goals. So that would be maybe the kind of language that we could play with between now and February to see if we wanted to adopt it. And I hope I don't know if there's any other big issues like that. Because like you said, there's a million things going on in this district, but it's something to think about.
I appreciate that. And if I may just add one other thing, I think something that might kind of reconcile this is the fact that it's not as though there are district goals and then there's board goals and they have to be completely separate things, but they also don't have to be exactly the same thing, right?
Right.
I think the idea is that the board has a role primarily in goal setting and strategy and in governance, right? And then all of those things have an administrative implication, right? There's not, I mean, we all work together. You're as elected officials, you all have a different part of the job, right? And then I kind of bridge the gap of coming onto your side with governance and understanding you and your thoughts and helping to coordinate all of us. And then certainly to make sure that the district is aligned to that with the team that we have here. So what I would say is, to Mr. Donnie's point about, there's kind of like a follow-up kind of comment, right? Something that I'm observing and I was just talking about this with the team. So, and I was actually just, Mr. Matthews and I were talking about this literally at the beginning of the meeting. As I took some time to reflect over the break, something that I feel like the especially now that we have this new org structure in place, something that I've been wanting to be better at, and I think this will help the board as well, is closing the loop. So like we have so many, I have this giant list. I've been dumping it on the team over the last week. This giant list of things that I've just had on like notes on and on file that like, we got to close the loop on this. We got to close the loop on this. Like we had some public comment today about some matters like concerns about turf. Like we have to, when people have concerns, we also, we do need time to be able to work things out, but we also just need to give people an answer sometimes. I was even reading, we actually have policy on responding to public concern, you know, and a lot of it is like, we do owe people a response, like even in writing too. So I think that maybe something we can focus on, and I'll leave it to you to figure out how you want to organize it, but maybe something we could focus on is at the governance level is having like a system. I mean, we have a variety of systems, so the administration's here to help. I know this is very much what Ms. Corliss works on all the time, but like really inventorying what those outstanding concerns are and setting timelines to close loops on those items and actually giving people formal responses, even if it might be an agree to disagree kind of situation. I think that would be really helpful. But I do think it's very helpful also, so as not to just create work that's extraneous from what we're starting to really come together on as what's important for the district around the strategic plan, but to focus on those main things. So our strategic plan is a major district goal. Strategy is a major purview of the board. So, and that's why we are including board members throughout in our processes as well. So I think that would make a lot of sense to me to have a board goal around that. The data capture that we try to do and the visualizations that we put together they're a powerful tool, I think, because they bridge the gap between the work that we're doing and the governance role that you have. So I think that like focusing on what we like, maybe what we're doing with those presentations and what we do after those presentations. Again, I don't know what that looks like. I leave it to you all to decide. But we're going to make the special education address an annual event, but we're still going to have the State of the Schools annual event, which is going to have some pretty heavy overlap. So there's a chance to touch base there as well. We're also going to do district goals every year, which is going to tie everything back in. But rather than having all these different functions, district goals, school goals, State of the Schools address, special education address, NJSLA data presentation, strategic plan, all of those things should really be different lenses by which we look at the same core effort that we're trying to engage in. So whatever, if you could focus your lens on, as a board, what are your key things that matter to you within those processes that fit solidly in your role as board members, that wouldn't be burdensome to us. It would actually be I think it'd be really helpful.
So, Dr. Shores, I think you already addressed. I had created a list of things where the loop had to be closed, and I was going to bring them starting today every the end of the meeting during discussion, and I thought not this meeting, and I'll start from the next meeting. So because I just wanted some closure. There are a lot of open items, right?
Yeah.
So, but I skipped it.
Well, if you want to just forward them to me, I'm like a collector of the unclosed loops right now.
Or just double check your list with his list first.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think we'll need a little bit of time. I mean, somebody who's got a lot of items on this unclosed list hasn't even started his role yet, Mr. Ross over here. So, but I would rather have a master list. And again, this is why, for those of you who know how we run the district, it's why we're very particular. I'm very particular, at least, about, and the team is very particular as well, about keeping systems like we use Trello behind the scenes, so that even if we can't move on something, we don't lose it.
Right. So
And then really
I
working through to
get
close
that
those.
part, right?
Yeah.
On that special ed presentation, I am personally not very clear that what was our concrete action or findings for improvement. I'm a firm believer that even if we are close to perfect, there's always room for improvement.
100%.
So that's the loop I want to close, at what are the areas of improvement and action items for that. And we had a district goal for this year. We already put it on those. We don't have any more district goals to add. So that's where I'm saying that there should be a board goal to basically follow up on that, to understand what came out of that presentation, what is our next action item. If we are saying that everything is good, I don't think that was the summarization of the presentation.
No, and if you go back to the presentation, there were a wide variety of action items that we identified.
Right, but those were not I could not understand those
Yeah.
as actionable. So
I,
that's
I,
where.
and I think some of it is and Ms. Dr. Fenwick and I talked about this a lot because, special ed is a very technical world and there still was a lot of technical vocabulary in there. So boiling it down to like, we are going to do X, Y, and Z. And I think we can do, we even talked about that like what we want to do a little better with that for the public's sake. But the next natural intersection of that is our planning for professional development next year and our planning for the structures of next year. So Dr. Fenwick, do you want to talk about that? Because you as board members will see this coming up in my district goal presentation, because even though we didn't necessarily, and again, I'll pull the district goals right now, I can tell you, but given,
While you're pulling that, do you want me to
yeah,
comment?
why don't you
So-
talk a little
so
bit?
There were, at the end of the presentation, there were 4 priority areas. And the first was aligning instruction and assessment. So when Dr. Schwartz talks about professional development, that's areas where we will heighten the area of special education. It won't just be conversation in the general ed realm. It will be how are our scores, what does our instruction look like? What does our curriculum look like to meet the needs of all learners? If you take a classroom and you dissect it into thirds, you have a third that are low and need some support. You have a third that probably already knew the information and a third that will learn through that level of instruction when you teach to the middle with the general curriculum. But we know we need more work to be done on the edges, right? We need to be educating, looking at how we're designing it, what the curriculum is, and what the assessment will be for everyone, universally designed. So that takes professional development. So there will be aspects of instruction, just targeted goals just towards that. We talked about family engagement, and we've already begun making changes in how the invitations go out, surveying families and students, getting that information. One piece that was brought back to us was, after the meeting, could we be sending surveys? So we're working on that. I know that the CPAG has already, after the presentation, gone through and asked for people who watched it or viewed it on recording to share what are their additional reflections, feedback regarding those priority areas and other priority areas. So we have, I have a responsibility and my team has a responsibility, not only to the board, not only to the families, to the state, to the federal government, to continue constantly looking at those areas. I'm happy to partner with you to give you
That's
progress. But don't think it ended. If I presented for all that time and anyone walked away thinking we were done,
right. So
That's not the truth.
that's the perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Fenwick, for that, because those are 2 clear board goals here. One is aligning the curriculum and assessments. So that's part of the curriculum committee meeting that we should bring up at every curriculum committee meeting, that what's happening on that. So board should be the board committees, which are part of the curriculum and assessment committee. They should be following up on that at every monthly meeting. It doesn't have to come at the board meetings, but at the committee meeting. So it's a board goal there. So who are 2 board members will be next year on that committee should follow up on that. And then the second one is family engagement. So the communication committee from the board, that should be following up every month on that, okay, what are we working on the family communication part and family engagement part, so these 2 clearly tied. So those were the 2 action items, and they become our board goals, because there are board committees for those 2 things. Just like field connects to facilities committee. So these 2 would be curriculum and instruction and family engagement. Those 2 should be.
as someone who is intimately involved in the strategic plan, both Brian and myself were just commenting, those are exactly 2 of the pillars of the strategic plan. So just so you know, there's a lot of attention to both of those areas.
It's fine. Even the whole facility has overlap. Everything we do has overlap. So I say, like, a lot of the times when I speak, Mary and Dr. Schwartz work like as my, hey, ChatGPT, can you refine this and make it more succinct? So that's what Yeah, so Mary said that, right? That it's prioritizing it. It's and showcasing that this is a priority for the board. So that's how Mary summarized that.
Yeah, I think, and you can frame some of those as supporting it through supporting initiatives that folks, supporting administrative initiatives that include something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so anybody wants to wordsmith those, just send them along and then we can discuss it. One thing about the board meetings is I think we should look at our presentations too. And what is it that we really want in a presentation to the board? And what are your ideas? What would you like to hear feedback on? What, is there a curriculum area where next year we would like to, understand the progress made in implementing a new program or whatever. So if you have thoughts on that, also share those, because we'll try to keep those presentations. I'd love to see meaningful presentations that highlight the work that's happening on the board in the district, that the board's really been involved in understanding and initiating it, budgeting for it, but then how is it monitored and implemented? And so if you want to give some thought to some of the things you'd like to see as board presentations in the beginning of the meetings, not to make the meetings longer, but to make the meetings meaningful. Okay. All righty, thank you for that. I'll expect my email to be filled with good thoughts, right?
Before we go to public comment, I just wanted to mention, because someone asked me to mention it today, on March 11th, March 11th, the League of Women Voters is going to be hosting a panel titled, "I Don't Want to Go to a Four-Year College, Alternate Career Paths or Alternate Paths." And that'll be advertised and there's going to be a lot of involvement, but I was actually specifically asked to mention it today. So put it on your calendar. That's all. In March 11th, because the CPAG gala is the 9th. So it's 2 days after that, but we're going to just keep mentioning it every month. So thank you.
And from my side, Dr. Shore, I said I'm not going to follow up. There's at least one follow-up that's time sensitive, because there are 8th graders who are deciding between Ridgewood High School versus going to some other high schools. Were we able to identify the finances related to hockey, ice hockey?
We did yes, we did with the athletic department did a full analysis of the board's contribution, the total costs and the board's contributions and the enrollment of all sports. So we actually have a meeting tomorrow morning. I believe we're going to be going over that to ensure that we have equity in funding. We have to have our meeting. I've reviewed those numbers. I'm going to report them out to the board.
Okay.
To be clear, but yeah, we have movement on that space. And just to be clear, hockey is not the only sport that's come forward with some concerns about their funding as well. So we're just going to really level set with everybody. Ideally, we'd like to be able to share this information publicly so people can have confidence in the decision we're making.
So that's fine. I'm not asking you to reveal that now. What I had heard was that hockey was the only sport that was authorized as a state level tournaments and state level sport, where students are paying that type of money. Others may be clubs. So
yeah, no. So to be clear, hockey is a very expensive sport. Right. So what the analysis that we're doing is we're looking at what is the total cost? How does that break down to the cost per student? And then what is the district's contribution to that? And then what remains left for the students? So I can't remember off the top of my head here how that contribution compares to other contributions, but it is quite high because it is one of the most expensive. Again, I want to be able to give clear figures, and I'm shooting from the hip here right now because you just asked me.
Right.
But I do want to be clear. There was also a rumor that they're the only ones who pay for their coach. There's no differentiation between who pays for what. There's a total cost for running the program, transportation, fees, equipment, coaching, everything. And then there is the board's contribution to cover those costs. And then there is the student contribution to cover those costs. They don't go into different buckets to pay for different things.
Okay, thank you.
And thanks to the lot of work has been going into this analysis. So hats off to the team working hard on this.
And just a reminder that Jamboree has, rehearsals have started. And Jamboree will be on, I think the dress rehearsal is the 5th of February. Then the performances are on the 6th, 7th, and 8th of February. So,
Or, sorry. So the first thing I need to correct is that the CPAC Gala is the 13th of March, not the 9th. So that was a mistake I made. And the second thing is the Friends of Music concert
yeah.
is this Friday night. I know it's short notice, the 10th. And that's always a really great event. And that supports enhancements to our music department throughout. And you get to see some really, really talented people who live among us and we don't even know it half the time. So yeah, if you have time to do that.
Great. Okay. Comments from the public. Mr. Moulton, Peter Moulton, you're on with the board.
Congratulations to our new and re-elected board members. So I thought it would be a good time to bring up a topic I brought up a couple times, I believe, of consideration of adding members to our board, possibly a 7 or 9 member board in the future. And not sure if this is something that's come up in discussion, but it has come up, I believe, in some evaluations of size of communities of size of ours and the size of their boards, and spreading of responsibilities. So I wanted to address that again today. Thank you.
Thank you. Suzanne? You're on with the board.
Yes, hello, Susan Ruan, again, Ridgewood resident. Just want to, 2 topics. One is the intersection of Franklin and Oak. I never brought it up at a CPAC meeting. However, a CPAC member brought it up at the meeting about, that particular intersection. And I know I pointed out to her at the time that the light was very short between the two roads. And I, and it was just something that I pointed out was the one it's on the corner of, I'm trying to remember, East Coast Burger, blah, blah, blah. She said that she was walking across the street and cars started beeping at her while she was in the intersection and stuff. So it was brought up at the CPAC meeting prior. And the next is in regards to the special needs. I was a little discouraged to hear that it'll be a discussion once a year in regards to special needs. And if that's the case, I would like to have a monitoring system on how many goals students with special needs are actually being met and how many kids who are in the special needs community are getting closer to grade level in their with their IEPs, because ultimately education is what the parent wants for their child, and they want their child to be as typical as possible or as independent as possible as an adult. So if there's going to be a monitoring system, I think there should be an expectation that kids are getting closer and closer to grade level in the special needs community. And that I don't think is really unrealistic. And so there should be a monitoring system on how many kids are in the special needs community meeting their goals and exceeding the goals, and how many are getting closer to what parents want is an education. And that was pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina, you're on with the board again.
Christina Million, Ridgewood resident. I just wanted to go back about to the rodent issue at Hawes. So I just want to level set with you. How some parents found out was because kids sat on the carpet for reading, and it's in the carpet. And then we were supposedly told that it was going to be handled over break. And then we have reports that it hasn't been handled because kids came home and started talking about it today. And I also want to go back to that December 16th BOE meeting. President Brogan, around I don't know, it was like a really long meeting, like 10:30 p.m. meeting mark. You said, quote, significant issues in terms of cleaning and inconsistent custodians at Hawes. So first of all, that was news to lots of parents. We have had no communication on that. And I honestly do not think it's acceptable that I have to hear about this new update at 10:30 at night on a school night. And as a parent of elementary school kids, I think it's a big ask to ask that they stay up for that. I don't have scope on how long this has been an issue, how large it is or not, remediation, and how long that remediation will take. But I do think that it's unacceptable. Not that anyone in the BOE has stated that. And it's an issue, and it's a sanitation issue. So I just want to level set on what's going on here. It's not like the kids came in and found mice, in the droppings in a corner. It's in the carpets. That's concerning. And I also want to flag that with winter coming, recess is inside and kids are eating snacks inside the classrooms where this poop is. So I just want to be really clear here that I'm not trying to over exaggerate an issue. It's a concern. We've had no communication about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Whoever's, is it Zoom? I can't see the second word.
Hi, this is Jacqueline Hone. I wanted to call in and ask once again. It's actually been a year since or over a year now, since I asked the board to please request the board's physician's position on the use and existing turf fields, the chemicals, pollutants found within, and how that is impacting the health of our children and field users. I brought that to the Board of Education in October of 2023. I believe in January, there was a board member that requested the physician's position, and we were told that we were going to get it, and we haven't. And the communication goals have basically been me just asking for this repeatedly now for over a year, and I still don't have the answer, which prompted me to do an Oprah request for email communications between the superintendent and the board physician. Not a route that I want to take, but I think a year, I don't know what the answer is. Like, how long should a resident wait to get an answer, especially on something so important? And when the infill of this material continues to be spread widely amongst all the fields, and now there's talk about more fields. So my Oprah email, my Oprah of these emails resulted in over 13,000 pages, and me being told that it can't be fulfilled because of the work that it's going to take to fulfill my Oprah request. 13,000 pages most certainly does not sound like a green light that turf is okay for children's health. So in transparency and in good faith, and in line with communication goals, would the superintendent just finish giving us this answer? Will you just release the information? What was the physician's position? There was a meeting where the superintendent said the physician had given his position, and I'm still waiting. We still don't have it. It's not made public. Does the board have it? Can the board answer me tonight and say you have it? I don't know. I don't have that information. All this field planning is a huge concern because you're planning without this critical information. The field plan should include testing of the soil and the surrounding properties where these fields are going to continue to be used. all the reports, all the data, the Mount Sinai letter, all the studies were provided to both the superintendent, the board, and the village of Ridgewood. And no one is addressing the fact that this material contains cancer-causing health risks to children and park users. And we still don't have, I know that there's an answer, but that answer hasn't been given to the public yet. And I really want to know tonight, please, can someone answer me as to when we can have that answer made public? Thank you.
Thank you. That was it, yes. I'm closing public comment now.
So may I respond, Mr.
Sure.
Brogan? Thanks so much. So, so first of all, thanks for the comments. I just want to remind everybody too, that certainly everyone's welcome to come and speak with the board. It's an open public meeting. It's an official meeting of the board. Public has a right to comment, but we're limited in the extent to which we can engage because this is a formal meeting of the board. It's obviously not a discussion. I can't ask clarifying questions. And so it's just, there's limitations there, but I do make myself available on a monthly basis at the superintendent coffees. Those are also recorded. Those are also live streamed. You can also participate in those virtually. And it's much easier, especially with some of these trickier topics, to engage in more of a back and forth conversation. Often when we're talking about topics that are of concern to folks, and we're talking about it here in the context of a board meeting, this is just a comment in general. People have a point that they want to make. And I think it's important that people have the right to make that point. I respect the points that they make. But again, I can't, especially with some of the more tricky ways that some of the questions are phrased or some of the topics which are rather complicated, a simple statement is not going to satisfy the issue, nor is it necessarily going to satisfy the person who's bringing the concern. So I certainly welcome anyone to come for more of a robust dialogue about a discussion. Certainly recommend people come to the superintendent coffees. You can see the recordings of the superintendent coffees online. We don't edit them. We don't obscure them. They are there as they are. That said, just a couple of things that I did want to respond to really quick. First of all, just to be clear, Mr. Moulton's question, that is not a superintendent question to answer. No seats on the board, so I'm just going to cruise right past that, but it's nice to have you out. Thanks for joining us. Appreciated the clarification from Mrs. Ruan. And then I really liked what you were saying about monitoring systems and monitoring grade level proficiency. That's exactly what we're proposing. So, Mr. Ruan, if you want to join us in our coffee, we can talk more about what that means. But there is going to be a convergence here. We want to make sure that we take time to look at the performance of different students in different categories and groups. But there is a universal strategy that we're building that ideally is going to help all kids, regardless of what their classification or status or identity is. So that's what we're working toward. And we look forward to sharing more about that and including you in a part of it. I appreciate the clarifications, Ms. Millian, about the rodent issues. I think at this point, your level of concern, we definitely want to have somebody reach out to your team. So we'll talk to the school again. We'll get some follow-up information. It sounds like you have some more recent information as well, but we will have somebody contact you to get what information you have, and we'll make sure that we are addressing that fully and completely. Certainly as you're conveying it, and I don't have enough concrete knowledge to say otherwise. What you're describing, yes, would be completely unacceptable. The idea of rodent droppings all throughout carpets, that would be completely unacceptable. And then Mrs. Hone, I know you've had some concerns. We have done work with our physician. I don't think we've actually formally asked the physician to write a position paper that would represent the district's official position on turf fields. So I think that might be where there's a little bit of confusion. We've had a variety of conversations about this topic, and we worked with the board attorney as well. We've reviewed a variety of academic studies, including the concerns that were put forth by some of the folks at Mount Sinai as well, which is the information's on their website. And we've crafted some language, which we're just in the process of just in the final stages of finalizing, which we'll be adding to our handbook to just clarify procedures for safer use of, or safer at least use of those fields. And to be clear, there's no debate about there being some materials that are a part of artificial fields that are unhealthy, that would be unsafe to consume. There are things that are, of course, that we want to be mindful that we're engaging in safe practices around. It is hard to pin down. In fact, and I would be happy to read anything that anybody has, but we are trying to find anything that would indicate that there is any specific causal effect that we could document and would justify us taking some sort of action in a scientific study about students participating in athletic sports. on artificial fields. There is not conclusive study on that topic. And that's what so basically our position is moving forward right now is to keep our eyes open, keep paying attention, and make sure that we're promoting safe practices with our students, but we're not in a position where we see evidence that we should be decommissioning fields as though they are an immediate harm to student safety. So I wanted to say something concrete to that, because I think that, that definitely there's been some time elapsed and there has been some work done. I'll leave it to a conversation with the board if we think that beyond that, if there's a need for some sort of a position statement to just kind of try to get some state of current clarity on the issue. But for the time being, appreciate everybody's engagement. I know the conversations aren't always comfortable, but it's a great community when people are comfortable to come and share their thoughts and we can engage in this kind of dialogue. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Schwartz. So from I don't know if the position statement is the right word, but my question would be a procedural question that if we, as a board, if a group of residents brought to our attention signed a letter that was specifically sent by Mount Sinai to Ridgewood. So when they sent that letter to us, right? So that letter is addressed to Ridgewood Village Council or Ridgewood Board of Education. They may not know the difference between two different entities. So they are sending a letter to, and the residents are bringing that to our attention. And we have, so that letter about medical language or concerns about health impacts. So as a board or administration, our attorney cannot advise us whether that is correct or not from the health perspective, technicalities on the health perspective. Attorney is advising us that, okay, if that is correct, then what do we need to put in the language for the manual and all that stuff, right? But from our information perspective, I think that's what we requested as a board, or at least I requested at that time, that, okay, what is the validity of this document from our physician's perspective? So I see our district physician as the professional who can guide us, unless you think that there will be some other professional who can guide us. So if residents brought something to our attention and we are just looking to validate it or get inputs on that, who would provide that input to us?
So I think what I'm hearing in your question is the board is looking for clarity as to the extent to which the claims in the Mount Sinai letter are valid. Whether that
we have a letter from Mount Sinai, we have a paper from them. Are we going to just discard it that it's not concerning, or are we going to say, okay, these are valid concerns? So
let me speak to the letter real quick. So the letter from Mount Sinai is basically so there is a statement on the Mount Sinai website right now about students using turf fields, and it basically is the content of the letter. So I don't know what the exact origins of why there was Dr. Evans, I think, what prompted that letter to be sent specifically to us. But the fact is that it's a general statement and an information statement that they have. And again, I've read it numerous times at this point, and it basically raises awareness about some things that are pretty well known, that crumb rubber infill frequently contains and likely contains materials in it that could be harmful to human health. I don't think anybody here is claiming that these things are necessarily good for the environment, but the reality is that there's a difference between it being on the field, being on the ground, and as it's supposed to be installed per se, and the extent to which it causes harm to students. In the same way that when we treat grass fields, there's plenty of things that we do that aren't necessarily best for the environment. But just because there is toxic substances in a specific thing, or when I say toxic substances, that's a subjective term. But just because there are substances that could be toxic if introduced to the human body, as in like you're eating it, that would be problematic. But there are toxic substances all around us. We have asbestos in a lot of these old buildings. If it's not disturbed, it's not a problem.
I get that, but all I'm asking is, I'm asking procedural question at this point, I think, and because that was my understanding, that we have an opinion or a paper that was submitted to the board record at a board public meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking as a board member to get a written comment on that. So who will provide
So,
that?
so,
Is
so,
that
so,
the-
that was my question too, is the board looking for a specific statement from the district physician? Because the district's physicians is that the matter is inconclusive. Meaning that,
Right.
meaning that because the question is there, are students being harmed? Are human beings being harmed by playing on a turf field? That's the
Right,
question.
so I'm not looking for a statement on either way. I'm looking, as me personally, I'm looking for me to us at a board meeting. We have a professional on staff. I'm looking for their opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, we could have the physician come into a meeting as well if we want to.
But
Or a
There's-
written opinion, whatever is easier for them.
Right.
but I
Because-
think,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to cut you off. Go ahead. You want to finish?
Right, so all I'm saying is, it's just like Dr. Fenwick said, that she is specialist and special ed and she knows the laws and regulations, and we take her
But
guidance.
Actually, I'm not sure I agree with that because I'm not sure what good does that do, right? I don't think anybody is denying the information in the Mount Sinai report. I've never heard that claim once said. I think there's definitely agreement in this the material itself. But now we, as a school district, just like every other school district, are faced with a challenge. What do we do with that information? Are we going to revert all these fields back to natural turf? And are all these students sacrifice playtime, flooding, muddy fields, etc.? Are we gonna continue? Like, that's the question we need to be focused on. So I don't know.
I don't know what the
the
question is. So the question can be,
here is gonna
the question,
add
right.
more.
So I don't know what the question is, Mahmood, at this time, because the question can be making a position statement that we will not install those type of fields in future. Or a position statement can be if new fields are being installed in the village for that, we can make an opinion on that and pass a resolution on that. So I don't know
But
what the
board
question is,
hasn't
right?
passed a
The
resolution.
question right now is are we accepting? So are you saying that we are just saying that the letter or opinion that was presented here, we are accepting that as a truth 100%, and then we are not taking any action on that?
I don't think that we've actually, as a board, come together and we've had a request by, numerous times by members of the community. We've been given information that the provenance of it is still not entirely clear, but we've not, as a board, made a resolution that we wanted necessarily an opinion. And frankly, and I've said this before, I have great respect for our district physician, but we're talking about really complicated, when you really get into it, complicated environmental, biological research. And I really think that we're asking for much more than one individual can give us at this point in time. And more importantly, the board has not asked for it yet.
Okay, so
So if you want that, I think you need to make a motion.
that's fine. So that maybe, I think I was under an impression that we asked for it, and Dr. Schwartz said he talked to him, and maybe it's the wordsmithing of whether it's a written recommendation versus oral recommendation. And it's maybe too late by 1 year, but if we need a resolution, I can make a resolution and you can go on record to vote no on that you don't care about any record letter that is coming from Mount Sinai or anybody else, right? So that basically I'm saying that we have residents who brought something to our attention. I'm asking for more professional information, and you can make a motion that we don't need it. We know more, right?
I care a great deal about the health and safety of our kids in our community. I want to make that absolutely clear. But I think really you have to take into account what Mohammed said, which is that we have very complicated, big issues that this piece of information is one piece of, right? So we don't have enough information in front of us right now, nor have we had the discussions, to even begin to discuss what do we do? Do we, like you said, you want to make I'm going too far afield here. So my point being that we, like every other school district, have an obligation to our students in a myriad of ways. And we really need to look at the entire situation. What do we do with our sports programs? What do we do? What do we have the money to support all these different things? And I'm just throwing stuff out really, kind of in a very general way. And so we can't take a shortcut right?
There's no shortcut.
So we have
My
to,
question is a
so
simple
your
procedural
question, your question is one piece that at the end of the day, it doesn't help us get to where we need to go, which is to make the judgment calls on a case by case basis as they're presented to us, you know, in light of all the information, which is what Mohammed is saying. And I think that this one piece, which I understand is very important to a lot of people, okay, is not enough for us to, it's not enough for us to go and kind of just make these broad statements.
Okay, my question
That's
is,
my opinion.
I think my question is not that complicated. My question is, a concern was raised to us. Are we, as a procedure, as a board, are we going to just ignore that concern, or are we going to get validation on that opinion?
So I don't disagree with the concern. I 100% agree that this material has harmful chemicals. Lots of research has shown that. I don't think anybody here disagrees with that. In an ideal world, would I love to play on natural turf? 100%. My kids play soccer. I take my own kids at night sometimes to Maple Field. We shoot the ball around on the soccer balls on the turf field, and we're on there. Would I have loved that to be grass, natural grass? 100%. Now, this is Mary's point, right? Is like, this is a bigger question that we have to think about as a district, is what do we do?
So what is our question? Our question is, that turf is better to play, or do we have any help? If you are saying that letter is, you agree with that, what is our fiduciary responsibility there?
I mean, the first question I wonder maybe the research is out there that I haven't seen, is kids all over the country are playing on artificial turf. So do we have research showing that them stepping on this material and occasional contact, does that lead to their health?
That information will come from professional, and that's the
Do you
question.
think our district doctor will have that information? Because
He
I
can-
feel
he
like
can-
that's more of a national research.
So I cannot make that determination. I'm saying that we have a professional, give that to the professional. He may come back and he may just state that I'm not qualified to comment on that.
If I can just jump in,
Yeah.
so we've had numerous conversations on the topic. We've read the thing is, there are not a lot of studies on the topic, and the studies that are out there are inconclusive. I mean, there is the body of research on how these fields would be impacting students by playing on them is not robust. That's what the Mount Sinai letter says. Mount Sinai letter also then offers tips for safer play on artificial turf surfaces. And that's what we're basing our practice around. The research does not show causality. It does not show with any kind of clarity that playing on the fields causes any type of problems at this time. I'm not saying that it doesn't. I'm not omniscient. Everything I'm saying right now is representative of the conversations I've had with the board physician. So if the board would like to have the physician out, he said he would come. He's come before, talk about topics like this. We can have him out. If we want to have him formalize a actual position statement and write this for us, he can certainly do that as well. But the bottom line is that what we're talking about is what is effectively a piece of property. It's like a tool that has a use. And the question is, how do we use the tool safely? And if there's no safe use, I think we can all agree. If we saw empirically on paper that something was not safe to use, we would not use it, right? We would do everything we could to tear it up if it came down to that. But the level of the body of research, and I've read the several of the studies, especially the more recent ones, and it's just, they continue to say that there's no clear conclusion.
So a follow-up on that if that letter says that these are the recommendations and that we all agreed to put those recommendations in writing, where are we with that?
And that is the piece that we're just finalizing the last bit of language. I just got to a point where we ran out of time at the end of the year last year. We have it drafted. We want to just check with council to make sure, because we're being pretty candid with the language. Just want to make sure that we're doing that, what we're writing is appropriate, and because we want to be transparent about what our position is with it. So we're talking about particularly recommendations for safe use.
Okay.
And by the way, we know we may have BPA materials in our cookware, in our pots and pans that are cooking for our students.
If we have it, we should get rid of it.
Plastic water bottles. I mean, there's so much material that has harmful material that in itself innately is harmful.
So there are two parts
now passing,
Right.
negative health risks to our students or not. I think if it's determined, yes, absolutely, with certainty, then absolutely we should be the first to stop that at any cost.
So if those BPA materials 10 years ago, then it's a different thing. If we are
No, they're
using,
still
if we are
manufactured
still
today.
using it, we should get rid of
I
it.
don't know if we are, but pots and pans still have BPA material today.
If we are aware of it, we should get rid of it. Anything that we are aware of it, we should take action.
That's a little bit simpler because you can get an alternative that won't sacrifice your cooking program, right? For as an example, right? That's the bigger issue now. That's the bigger issue.
BPA, it's clear cut for plastic and
Yeah,
cooking.
but if you switch now to natural, you are sacrificing. And again, like I said from the beginning, I am 100% for an ideal world natural.
I'm not
dress.
talking about switching. I've voted twice to repair the fields. I'm not talking about switching, right? There were two, within my 3 or 4 years, there were 2 times when the vote came. I even voted to so Stephen Field or Stadium Field. Stephen Fields came after I came on the board for resurfacing. I voted for. Then 2 floods where we had to spend money to fix it. I voted for that. So I'm not talking about replacing it. I'm just talking about we should be aware of the consequences and the health impact. So that way, when we are advocating for a new field or when we are planning any new, so that's trade-in comes in that we do when we are investing money on the new one.
I think what we're right now is we are finishing up on those safe uses of the field. That's the target right now. Mary Lou, anything you want to add? Or you don't have to, I'm just.
Taking it all in.
Oh, okay, great, great. So this is the first meeting of many, so.
Yes.
Right. Right, I know, thought we'd be done by now. Yeah, I will, we'll end the meeting now, we'll adjourn, I move to adjourn the meeting, do I have a second? Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Have a lovely evening, what's left of it, and we will be back on January 27th.